This session is an introduction to emotion regulation. So what is that? It's the ability to control or influence which emotions you have, when you have them, and how you experience and express them. If you could just change your attitude, you can change your feelings, which would be ideal, but it's not always possible, is it? So we need to understand our emotions more and able to have more control over them. Difficulties in relating painful emotions can cause big problems. So people often manage those feelings by harming themselves, engaging in suicidal behaviours, overeating, undereating. They might take substances to manage difficult feelings. It can often get in the way of getting along with other people. And you might have things in your mind that you do to manage difficult emotions. And people who are often quite sensitive to emotions and situations often struggle more with this, being able to regulate and tolerate difficult emotions. So you have to think about what's most important to you. Is it about understanding and naming your emotions, identifying your emotions and knowing what emotions do for you? Is it more about decreasing the frequency of unwanted emotions, stopping unwanted emotions from starting in the first place, changing unwanted emotions from the beginning? Is it more about decreasing emotional vulnerability to an emotional mind, increasing resilience and your ability to manage difficult things and positive emotions? Or is it about decreasing emotional suffering, so reducing suffering when painful emotions kind of overcome you and overwhelm you, and managing those extreme emotions so you don't often make things worse? Because quite often we do things to manage difficult feelings, but those things that we draw on often make things worse and bring in other difficult feelings. It's not our intention by any means, but sometimes we try and cope with things in an unhelpful way, just maybe because we don't know any different options that are out there for us. So you might look at all of these things and you might think, right, I want to do all of those things, and that's fair enough. So which emotions do you want to change the most? So before you change emotions, you need to be able to understand them and what they are for and the function of those feelings. So do you know what happens to you when you get emotionally dysregulated? Do you know which emotions pop up the most for you? Are you able to label them and identify them? When you understand your emotions, you can cut down on unwanted emotions by stopping unwanted emotions from starting to begin with. So thinking about what makes you more vulnerable to falling into that emotional mind, changing painful emotions once they begin, thinking about emotions themselves as not being good or bad. We sometimes label things as positive and negative, and actually we need all of them. Some feel more able, easier to manage than others, but we do need all of them, and they all have a purpose. Blocking emotions can often make things worse. We try and think, if I can just push it down, it'll go away, and it doesn't always work like that. Emotional regulation is ineffective for emotions only. We want to decrease our vulnerability to falling into emotional minds. So we want to help you to get to a wise mind position in order to decrease emotional suffering. So reduce suffering when painful emotions overcome you. Manage extreme emotions so that you don't often make things worse, because we try and manage feelings by doing certain things, but actually sometimes those things that we do to manage them make them worse. It's not our intention by any means, but yeah, the actual problem isn't the emotion itself. Sometimes the problem can become how the strategy that you adopt to manage the emotion. So we want to look at how not to make things worse. So there are lots of different types of emotions, and it's important to have a think about what the main emotions are, what they feel like, and what they do. What is their function? What is their purpose? Because people can have lots of different difficulties with managing their feelings, and it's important to understand how emotions work to be able to label them correctly, because then you can manage that emotion appropriately, and understand the physiological impact an emotion can have on our bodies, and the action urge. So what does that emotion drive us to do? And this is why mindfulness is really, really important in observing and being able to describe things that you're feeling and things that you're thinking, and because it gives you more control. If you're able to identify and label things in a more appropriate way, then you're able to deal with them differently. But emotions, they serve needs, and we might not want to give them up easily, but we do need to understand them better and able to manage them better, and like I said, feel more in control of them. So the main emotions are anger, disgust, envy, fear, happiness, jealousy, love, sadness, and then the two kind of ugly ones at the bottom, the shame and guilt. They're really, really difficult emotions to manage. So what do they feel like? They might feel like different things for different people, but there tends to be common themes in what these feelings generate. So anger often tends to make people tense up, parts of their body. They get ready to kind of fight, and it's a very hot emotion. They often get very, very hot, getting ready to act in that moment. Fear can want you to generate the feeling of wanting to run away. Again, it can make you very sweaty. It can make you feel like you need the bathroom. It can make you shaky. It can generate lots of adrenaline running through your body, which can make you want to feel like you want to be sick. So it's important to identify how these things impact on our body physiologically, because then you're more able to identify them, so you can think, right, you could do a little body scan. What am I feeling right now in my body? And that might help you then to identify what it is that you're feeling, what emotion is being triggered right now. So think of some emotions that you want to change, because different people will want to work on different emotions. So it might be the feeling of sadness, or the feeling of anger, or it might be you really struggle with fear. So what is it specific to you that you want to learn how to manage it in a different way? What do emotions do? What are they even there for? Because sometimes it feels like they just get in the way, but actually they're there to serve a function and a purpose. So they can motivate you for action. They can get you prepared. If you're panicking about an exam, then that will probably cause you to revise because you're panicking. So it helps you to feel more prepared. So that's motivated you to take action in that moment. They can save time in getting you to act in a situation. So if you see someone crossing the road and there's a car coming, in that moment that emotion causes you to shout out, "Look out the way!" It's very, very quick. But it was triggered by an emotional response. Strong emotion can help you to overcome obstacles as well. Can communicate with other people through facial expressions, because it's quicker to read someone's facial expressions and body language and all that non-verbal stuff than it is to sit down and say, "Well, I'm feeling like this right now," or "This has happened and it's causing me to feel this." You can see when someone's angry. You can see when someone's anxious. You can see when someone's sad. They sit in a certain way. They hold themselves in a certain position. So it's communicating to other people, and which can in turn influence other people. If someone's very, very angry and you can very, very visibly see that, that can influence you. You might not want to go over and have a chat with that person because you think, "Oh, that's a dangerous situation." They communicate to others in terms of giving us important information about a situation. So you can read a situation. Is this a dangerous situation? Is this a safe situation? So signals an alarm or alarms that something is happening. People talk about their gut feeling and their intuition, and that's really important. And that's often, it's that spidey sense. People are picking up cues, very, very subtle cues that something has happened. You know, people say, oh, you could just feel the atmosphere in the room. But it's because people are responding to their emotions in a certain way, and they are demonstrating them, whether it's on their face or their body. So you can get that instinct. And they help us to check the facts, you know. Okay, I'm feeling like this, so how can I check that out? What's my evidence to support this, that I'm the way that I'm feeling? So how do emotions work? Something happens, leading to your brain thinking about it and processing it, leading to changes in your body and causing you to feel an emotion. So there's something happening, could be an internal thing, it could be a thought, it could be a memory, it could be something about the past or something about the future, you know, a thought about the future. So this is where mindfulness comes in again. It's about grounding you to the present moment, because our minds can sometimes take us off to what has been or what we think is coming, because we don't know the future. Nobody knows that. But our minds can often take us to somewhere else, and actually we want to be in the moment. And we want to notice, you know, we want to notice those thoughts when they go to the past or to the future. Something happening could be actually an event in your environment, so something you can physically see, something you can hear, an actual event. Then your brain processes it thinks about it in a certain way, maybe based on your past experiences, what you've generated to be, you know, thinking of patterns in the past of what's happened. You experience changes in your body. This could be things like your heart rate, your muscle tension, your breathing rate, your temperature might increase, it might decrease, you might feel weak at the knees, and then you feel an emotion. So for example, a letter drops on the mat, your brain thinks about it based on what you experience might be. It might be think, oh, that's a red letter bill, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to pay some money. You might feel changes in your body, your heart rate might increase, you might feel sweaty, you might, you know, your breathing rate might increase, and then you feel the emotion of anxiety. So because you've processed it in that way to be something negative or something that's going to place a demand on you, your body physiologically responds in that way. Whereas if you thought, ooh, this is a birthday card for me, you know, what a treat, you might experience excitement by, you might also, you know, get an increase in your heart rate, but it might not feel uncomfortable. And you might respond really quickly with excitement, and you want to open that card really quickly. So by practicing mindfulness, we want to make decisions and choices based from our wise mind position, and that involves balancing the two, the reasonable mind and the emotional mind. So we want to be able to observe our thoughts, feelings and behaviours and be able to describe them and just notice them from a non-judgmental position. Because if we've got more of an awareness, we've got more control over what we do with that. It's when we feel like we're not aware and these things just happen to us and we've got no control whatsoever, we tend to be more in an emotional mind position, and quite often unwise choices are made from an emotional mind position that we may regret later. So what are these things? So reasonable mind is things like doing things quite rationally, logically, following quite a structured process. So that might be following a recipe. You know, it's got a list of things to do. It's very structured. Emotional mind is when your emotions are in the driving seat, basically. So your emotions are in charge of what you're thinking, how you're behaving. You're responding just purely led on emotions. And wise mind, this is where we have the balance of the two. We've got a balance of the reasonable mind and the emotion mind, and we can work together with them. And that's the best place to be, because you feel like you're in control and we're not being led purely by one of those above.